I've tried to answer every question to the best of my ability, and these are in no particular order. You smell like salmon. Also, this is probably going to have to be split up into more than one video. What do you do about the shedding? Absolutely nothing. Give up. That's what I do. That's what I do about the shedding. I gave up. I gave up when I was like 8 years old. Believe it or not, he actually doesn't shed too badly. I do brush him every day though. More just because I like brushing him rather than for actual grooming purposes. Even just his fur aside, we have 3 other dogs who all shed like 5 times worse than he does. Dog fur is like a condiment in my house. You don't try. Do not fight the fur. Just deal with it. Know that you're going to have to deal with shedding, and if it's that much of a problem, try to get a dog that doesn't shed much. But even then, you're probably still going to have to deal with dog hair. Can you give some advice to somebody going back to school with a service dog? Make sure that you are thoroughly prepared, and for the most part, as long as you do take the proper steps to prepare ahead of time, you shouldn't have any problems whatsoever. Just make sure you get the accommodations you need. Make sure you meet with somebody from disability services at your school. They'll take care of everything. You might have to fill out a little bit of paperwork to make it an accommodation, but aside from that, there's not really much you have to do to prepare ahead of time. Some may ask for the doctor's note prescribing your service dog. My particular school did not. I just had to fill out a form requesting the accommodation saying I need the service dog for medical reasons, pretty much, and I signed it and submitted it at the time, and that was really about all I had to do. And this isn't required, but I guarantee that your professors will definitely appreciate it, as it's both polite and will also sort of just give them a heads up. Either email or contact your professors ahead of time just to let them know. You don't have to give them your life story, but just say, hey, I'm going to be in your class this semester and I have a service dog. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Just explain that your dog is not going to disrupt the class or get in the way of anything, and sort of politely reach out to them, because sometimes it can come as quite a shock to some professors. Although it shouldn't, it can. So, if someone doesn't accept your service dog, what do you do? I am assuming you've made all efforts to educate and explain and demonstrate why you truly need this dog. You can only do so much. You can try really hard to get it across to them why you need this dog and what this dog does for you. Some people just aren't going to get it. So some people with a nice conversation will open up to it over time. Sometimes you just need to forget about them. If it's someone who's never going to be okay with it and is always going to have a problem with you and your service dog, you're going to have to sacrifice that person for your service dog. I definitely say find better friends or, better family. How to go about applying for a job with a service dog. Now, some people are probably going to disagree with me on this. In my experience, I have learned, be honest. Some people choose to not go to job interviews with their service dog. Most of the time that ends up backfiring, because you get the whole, oh, but you didn't need him then, so why do you really need him now? Like, you shouldn't bring him to work and things like that. So I definitely, the number one tip I have is always attend your job interview with your service dog, for that reason, and also because if you have a medical problem in your job interview, it's really gonna suck if your dog is not there. I have learned not to bring up the service dog on the phone. So the first few times I got called for job interviews, I brought it up and I said, okay, I'm just gonna let you know ahead of time I do have a service dog, just to be polite, and they ended up revoking the interview directly on the phone right that minute. I can't stress enough, absolutely take your dog to the interview. Otherwise you probably will run into future problems. So definitely be honest, but also be careful not to over advertise the fact that you have a service dog and a disability, especially if it's a psychiatric service dog. I mean, I know that's bad to say, but I'm sure everyone out there knows, people are judgmental. So just be careful, but also be honest. What is the best breed for a service dog? I can't really say, because the breed really has nothing to do with the service dog. Any breed of dog can be a service dog. It mostly depends on what you personally need. Say, for example, if you need a mobility dog, you're not gonna get a Pomeranian. But it doesn't mean a Pomeranian can't be a service dog. It just means it has to do a different type of work because it's not physically capable of of that. Typically like guide dogs that you see tend to be golden retrievers or labs, but that doesn't mean that another dog can't be a guide dog as well. It all rests upon the individual dog's temperament, intelligence, drive to work, and certain breeds are different. So yes, certain breeds tend to be better for certain types of work, but there is no this breed makes the best service dog in general type of thing. Like, that's not really how that works. You just need to think about what you need your dog to do, and you need to consider what traits would be best for that type of service dog, and then start looking for the breed that you want. What are some of the tasks that Bugsy does for you? Oh gosh, he does a lot. Let me list everything I can think of. Well, he alerts to seizures, and he alerts to when I pass out, which are two completely different episodes, and he has separate alerts for each of those. He alerts to panic attacks, which I don't really have that much anymore. I'm considering taking that off of his list of tasks that he does, because I haven't had one in a while, and when I do have one, they're infrequent enough that it's not quite disabling. Retrieving dropped objects, opening doors, cupboards, drawers, bringing me medications, bringing me a Gatorade. He alerts to my chest pain. He performs what is called deep pressure therapy, sometimes also referred to as DPT for short. When I become severely disoriented or I forget where I am, he can snap me out of it and remove me from an overwhelming situation. He can give an excuse for me to leave if I'm not quite functioning and I need to get the heck out of there. He knows how to go and retrieve help in case something goes wrong or if I fall. He retrieves my phone for me when it rings or if an alarm goes off, because I rely so heavily on my phone for alarms throughout the day because I can't remember everything. Sometimes I'm completely oblivious to the alarms and the vibrations, and no matter how loud or vibraty it is. Blocking is another one of his tasks, which is essentially just using him to create a barrier between myself and another person or object if I'm feeling uncomfortable. Like, if we're waiting in line and someone's getting too close, he'll put himself between me and that person or that object wherever I command him to go. He has different commands for like on the sides or in front or in back and things like that. He can help to remove clothing and help me get dressed on really bad mobility days. Pulls my wheelchair. If I'm really disoriented and out of it, I may start to walk into traffic, and he knows how to, plant himself firmly on the ground and stop me from going into potentially dangerous situations. He does a lot more than I'm not thinking of right now. That was just like vague overview in terms of like detailed tasks. He does do more. What do you feed Bugsy? We feed him Purina Pro Plan. Throughout summer, spring, and fall, we feed him just regular shredded chicken mix is the one that he likes the best. And when winter hits, we put him on Purina Pro Plan weight management because he gains weight easily, and I have a hard time exercising him in the winter in Maine. How long does it take to get a service dog? Well, that depends on if you're going to owner train or go for a program dog, but I guess like a good generic answer here would be 2 to 3 years on average, assuming you're starting either from scratch owner training, like completely from scratch, or the beginning of applying to a program, which usually takes a couple years as well. How do you deal with the negatives of having a service dog, meaning the staring and the rude comments and everything that you get when you go out into public? I try my best to stay calm, polite, and educate whenever I'm given the opportunity. When that's just not an option, I usually revert to my headphones and my iPod, and that just allows me to sort of keep my cool until I get home and just rant about it. Do you go to school with your service dog? I did. Back when we were going to school, he was still in training, and we intend to go back to school hopefully next year. Just have to finish making my portfolio and apply and find a job and a steady income and a place to live. How does it feel to become YouTube famous because of Bugsy? Wow, dude. Seriously, you're going like 60 in a parking lot. There's just like a massive logging truck just bolted down the freaking parking lot. Glad no one died. How does it feel to be YouTube famous because of Bugsy? I don't know that I'd say YouTube famous. Maybe well known within the service dog / disabled community. But it feels good. But for the most part, I'm glad that my channel really does seem to be helping people. How does having a service dog with you work when you're taking classes at school? It really doesn't change much. It's like being a regular student. If your dog behaves appropriately, it ought to be as if the dog is not there unless he or she is performing a task. So I guess there's really nothing different, although on the rare occasion that you just have a massive service dog, so you have like a huge Dane or something, sometimes they may not fit in front of the desk, so you might have to figure out an alternative way to put them in a down and stay that's out of the way and not disrupting the class. For the most part, it really doesn't change anything at all. How old was Bugsy when you got him? I believe he was around 9 months old when we got him. He's currently 2 years and 6 months. So, well, he's gonna be 7 in like 2 days. It's almost the end of October. Can you train your own service dog, or do you have to go through an agency? Yes, you can train your own service dog, and you can go through sort of an agency. They're called program dogs. There's a bunch of programs out there, and you can do one or the other. They're very different choices. A lot of it is going to depend on your personal needs and the time and the effort that you are going to be able to put in. Definitely do a lot of research before choosing which one you want to do. But yeah, you can go either way, whichever one works best for you. Did you name Bugsy? No, I did not. And I honestly have to admit that I probably never would have chosen the name Bugsy. Now that I know him better than I know any other living being on this planet, I definitely think the name suits him. It fits him perfectly, but I honestly admit that I probably wouldn't have chosen that name from the start. Plane security. How did that go? I'm assuming you mean our last trip. And it went pretty well. The pat down is a little annoying, but the woman who did the pat down on Bugsy managed to, she completed the whole thing within like 20 seconds. It wasn't bad. It wasn't invasive. She did a good job. So I'd say it went really well. The most frustrating part was the wheelchair pat down. I swear to God, that took like 20 minutes for them to swipe and rub and touch everything on my wheelchair, and then I had to have my own pat down. But in terms of the service dog security, it was really good. Nice and fast. Do you support breeders? The short answer, I have to say no. Hear me out on this, because I'm probably going to get a lot of crap for this. I don't support breeders. I don't especially like what they do, but I have to admit that if it is done professionally, if it is done correctly, professionally, and safely, if the breeder knows what they're doing, I'm not thrilled about it, but I can tolerate it if the breeder is responsible and professional about what they're doing. I do feel guilty about Bugsy because he is the first non-shelter rescue dog we've ever had, and I think honestly, had I been looking for another pet, I wouldn't have gone through a breeder, but because of my specific needs and the time crunch we were in, and just the fact that most dogs were not going to be capable of what I needed, we definitely jumped on the opportunity and got Bugsy. I wouldn't change what I did. I'm not walking around with like big posters saying, "Yay, breeders, woohoo!" But I do respect the ones that know what they're doing. Just know that you can get the most amazing pets in rescues and shelters. Sometimes you can get really amazing service dog prospects in a rescue or shelter too. It just depends on what you need. You are funny, and I hope get a service dog. Thanks. And I'm assuming you hope you get a service dog. Kind of forgot a pronoun there. In which case, if you were referring to yourself, then if you are indeed disabled and could be helped by a service dog, then I hope you get one too. If that's not what you meant, then I'm sorry, I have no idea what you were trying to say. So on to the next question. Can you explain some general info about TBIs, traumatic brain injuries? Not really. Not because I'm unwilling to talk about it, but a TBI is so drastically different in anyone that has one that it's really hard to say anything general about it. There's really not much I can go over in terms of in general overall TBIs. However, I will be making a vlog to talk about my personal TBI and Bugsy, and hopefully that will help others a little bit. But it's hard to say in general just because there are problems that I don't have that other TBI sufferers have, and vice versa. And everything really just ranges so much. It's so difficult to even say anything about that. Did you work with a trainer to train Bugsy? No, I tried. It was a substantial disaster. We did not get along. First day of class, she kind of made me cry. It was a lot of misunderstandings, and it didn't turn out well. So I just kind of said, okay, screw this. I'm going to train him myself. But in a way, it was good because it did motivate me to become determined to do it all on my own. What is all of Bugsys' gear and supplies? He has 2 wheelchair leashes, 2 working collars. I prefer martingales. He has a regular collar and a regular leash for when my dad walks him. A wheelchair pulling harness, a regular paracord harness, a mobility harness by Bold Lead Designs, and he has 2 capes. He has a green one, and then he has a small lightweight blue cape that we just use for really hot days during the summer. He has a pair of boots. We rarely use them because, winter doesn't faze him at all. We mostly use that for hot pavement, which we don't really get that much up here in Maine. It's pretty rare. He has 2 over-the-shoulder hands-free leashes that I made back when I was walking. I don't use them anymore because I'm in the wheelchair, but once I get back to walking, we intend to go back to those. And he has his own backpack for traveling. We also have various paracord pull straps throughout the house attached to different things. I think that's all I can think of right now, but he does have a lot of gear.